ENFJs and conflict and how we deal with it. So the perception of FE tends to be that FE users, especially FE dominant users, avoid conflict at all costs. Now, I want to challenge that a little bit. I've mentioned in a few other videos that I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about how FE actually works. I might get into that a little bit deeper in another video, but I really want to talk about conflict and what that means to me and some examples of how I deal with it. So I actually think that the ENFJ and the ESFJ deal with conflict very differently. ENFJs tend to sort of go full force, while ESFJs sort of go away from it. So I guess to start, I'm just going to say that I personally think that conflict is like quite useful, and I enjoy shaking things up, and I enjoy rattling feathers only if it's going to be useful. Now, all NJ types sort of like shaking things up, especially ENJs, but ENTJs will be the type that will sort of mess with things no matter what. And ENTJs, it's mostly because they believe, too, that conflict is useful, and they don't like lying. They don't like pretending that they're okay when they're not. But ENFJs, we're somewhere in between, where we aren't going to just say whatever we want, but we also are not going to avoid conflict either. So it's sort of in between the ENTJ and ESFJ. For me, I will try and strategically wonder, like, okay, is this actually going to get somewhere by me saying this? So I was like, okay, I really like to say cold, hard truths with people that I care about. But for me, it depends on how close we are. Like, I won't feel comfortable saying a cold, hard truth if I don't know the person, because I don't know how they're going to take it. And I feel like it's not my place to say it. But with my family, people I've been in relationships with, or my best friends, just people I'm more intimate with and I feel like I understand, I love doing that. I love telling them things that I know they need to hear but don't want to hear. It just makes me feel so great because I feel like I'm helping. And what I find that ESFJs do is they tend to sweep it under the rug, which I absolutely hate. Now, healthy people won't sweep things under the rug, but I think that ESFJs are really good at de-escalating conflict, and so that's just what they do. They try to de-escalate an argument, but what they have trouble with is recognizing when something won't go away. A lot of times, fights are just stupid and they'll go away and it's not a big deal. But ESFJs aren't that great at noticing when something is a big enough deal where you can't just, it's not going to go away, you have to bring it up. Where my sister, who's an ESFJ, has complained before that I seem to just not know how to drop things, and I'll just sort of bring it up no matter what. It's like, in the same way that an ESFJ might fear having an argument, I fear not bringing something up when I should have. I fear something getting shoved under the rug, because then it can really explode. And so I guess I feel like there's a huge difference between being an asshole and going towards conflict. Okay, I guess my view is that I want to go towards conflict so that it will be easier in the long run. I just overwhelmingly prefer short-term discomfort in favor of long-term comfort. In fact, I feel like I'm always fighting against short-term comfort. I'm always making sure I'm doing something to stretch myself at all times, which has something to do with my SI blind spot or SI point of least resistance in socionics. I am just not, like, ENFJs are not in tune with their introverted sensing and how their body feels at that moment and how comfortable they feel. So but I am always thinking about the future and how to create a better life for myself. And so if I think that conflict could help in the future, then I always go toward it. And you see this with Facebook posts during the election season. A lot of ENFJ friends of yours probably were the ones urging people to get out and vote, especially for the candidate they wanted and believed in. And ENFJs are not shy about commenting back on and joining in on a Facebook argument and saying their opinion. If they really believe in it, that is. They will not just do it just to do it. It will be because they feel like they are helping the greater good in some sense. It seems like TPs, especially INTPs, just think it's fun to argue and don't really necessarily mean anything by it. They're just playing devil's advocate. But ENFJs, if they are creating conflict, saying and see, there's a huge difference too. Like I said, like it's not about being mean. It's not about you're dumb and I'm right and you're wrong. It's about, hey, you should consider these facts. This is why I believe this. And it's like a very impassioned moral argument. They appeal to your morals. And I think that those things can actually lead to the greater good, because I think that people shouldn't hide from the truth and people shouldn't be afraid of feeling different sort of ways. I guess I believe that a lot of people just don't know themselves well and don't know how they're affecting people, and they don't know how much, like, what they're feeling. And I also think a lot of people are lazy and don't bother looking into what they feel, what they want, things like that. And so I guess this is maybe really arrogant of me, but it's common for ENFJs to feel like they are doing someone a service by sort of calling them out. Being like, let's say you're in a friend group and your friend is just dating the wrong guy, everyone hates him. An ENFJ would be the person to be like, Becky, look what's gotten into you. You haven't showered in 5 days, and like you're neglecting your friends, and like you've gotten fat. Well, they wouldn't say it like that, but it'd be like, Becky, like, have you really thought like about what you're wearing today? Like, it'd be all out of concern for their friend. I believe, like, in situations where there's like an elephant in the room, an ENFJ will always want to call it out. At least personally, I will. I see how maybe not all might want to, but I definitely want to call out the elephant in the room 9 times out of 10, unless it would create something terrible, something worse than the elephant. You have to keep in mind that not all ENFJs are going to act the same, but all ENFJs are going to weigh what the greater good is in that situation. So, the reason why many ENFJs would call out the elephant in the room is because they believe that that will contribute to the greater good. And if they don't, it's because they don't in that situation. You have to take it at a case-by-case basis. So, the purpose of conflict is that when you get into arguments with someone, you turn out to be a better person. Like, I love it when people call me out. That's why I do it. Like, I wouldn't do it unless I could take it. I love when people tell me things like, your room is a mess, you need to clean it, like, you need to do blah, blah, blah. Like, I love when people sort of give me wake-up calls. I think that wake-up calls are so necessary. And I also think that if you are just thinking, and if you're trapped in your own little head with your own ideology and your own feelings and your own thoughts, chances are you aren't all the way correct. Like, chances are you're wrong in some way, because the truth is so multifaceted and everyone has a different feeling. So it really helps when you open that up to see what other people have to say. This is why I think ENFJs but are okay with going towards conflict, is because we want that FE input of what do people have to say in order to help our TI come to conclusions. So, especially with a lot of political arguments, there was a point, especially with this election cycle, I'm sure you all know, no matter who you voted for, that the Facebook arguments seemed to get a little bit pointless. Like, people weren't going to change their views. But I did get into a couple arguments where I felt like I learned something. And if you create conflict and then you learn something, that's great. Like, that's what it's for. If you create conflict and you're a stronger person afterwards, that's great. If you create conflict and you help someone else, that's also great. And so the way I deal with it is that if it's unavoidable, I go toward it as fast as possible without trying to hurt the emotional environment. Like, there are some times when you just can't bring it up because it would it's just not your place. Like, you wouldn't, my grandma and I might disagree on a political issue. Like, am I going to bring that up on Thanksgiving? No, I'm not, because that just doesn't make sense. But if she asks me my opinion on something and I tell her, what it is in a very, not forceful way, but in a stern way, and maybe it's not all happy flowers and rainbows, then maybe she learned something, maybe I learned something, when the emotional environment is acceptable. It's all about learning something new. It's all about moving forward. And the catch is that you need to make sure that you're in an emotional environment where that is okay. You need to make sure you're talking to a person where it will be well received. You don't just, see, and this is another, you don't just talk to someone who you don't know and try and tell them how to live their life or try and create conflict with them, because chances are you don't know them, so you don't know their backstory, you don't know their rationale behind things. And I think that ENTJs, when they do this with people that they don't really know, it's because they value extroverted thinking over introverted thinking. So they are less hesitant about making a conclusion about someone, I'd say. Where for me, it's only until my introverted thinking really feels like I know what I'm doing before I feel comfortable. But when I do, it's extremely passionate, no holding back. Sometimes things need to be said, and I think it's way worse to leave things unsaid, personally. So if you have any other specific questions about how ENFJs deal with conflict that you would like me to talk about, leave a comment, and I would love